invitation arrived on a Monday, black cardstock with silver foil lettering. It announced the Whitman family's annual reunion to be held in Seattle. I stared at it, running my fingers along the elegant print as old memories of eye rolls, snide remarks, and forced smiles echoed in my mind. The weight of their judgment felt as sharp as ever, a silent reminder of years spent as their scapegoat. My name is Nora Whitman, though these days in the business world I go by Nora Quinn. 12 years ago, I was the family letdown. The artsy one who turned down a slot at Whitman Capital to study hospitality management in Chicago. The black sheep with a dream and no real prospects. My phone buzzed. It was my cousin, Chloe. I answered. "Nora," she sang too brightly. "Hope you got the invite." I did. Well, I just wanted to say this month's gathering is very upscale. The Stellar Haven is quite refined, you understand, right? Her voice dripped with condescension, a calculated jab to keep me in my place. I looked out at the Boston skyline from the penthouse office of Quinn Hospitality Group. I nearly laughed. The Stellar, my first 5-star resort, but the Whitmans didn't know that. "Are you saying I don't fit in, Chloe?" "Don't be like that," she said, her tone sticky sweet. "It's just, we'll have celebrities, tech founders, a senator or two. You know how appearances matter." She was painting me as the family embarrassment, too low class for her elite guest list. Appearances, she meant me. Couldn't have her influential friends realizing her cousin once worked reception. And who picked the venue? I did, obviously, she said proudly. Dad said I have a knack for luxury spaces. The Stellar is the top spot in the Pacific Northwest. I had to call in serious favors to land it. I nearly choked. The favor had come through our booking site. I'd approved it personally, at 50% above our premium rate. She thought she'd pulled strings, oblivious that I'd orchestrated every detail of her so-called coup. "That must have been tricky," I said. "Well, not everyone has my pull," she gloated. "The owner, N. Quinn, is reclusive, but their team was so cooperative when they heard the Whitman name. Of course they were. I told them to roll out the red carpet. Anyway," Chloe said, "I'm sure you get it. Maybe next year if you've moved up from that boutique motel in Back Bay." That motel launched my entire empire. Her dismissal stung, a reminder of every time she'd sneered at my ambitions, calling them childish. "But sure, Chloe, maybe next year." "That motel," Chloe mocked. "It was actually my pilot property where I tested and refined the innovations that would later make Quinn Hospitality Group a disruptor in the luxury hotel world. But the Whitmans stopped paying attention to my career long ago." "Something like that," I had told her. After hanging up, I leaned back in my leather chair, the hum of Boston traffic faint beneath the double-glazed windows. Memories rushed in. 12 years ago, I'd graduated from the University of Illinois with a degree in hospitality management, brimming with ideas and zero support from my family. They'd laughed at my graduation, whispering I'd end up a glorified maid. "You're going to clean rooms for a living?" my father had boomed. No Whitman wears a name tag, but I did. And I carried luggage, scrubbed floors, handled irate guests, and trained staff. I didn't just want to run hotels. I wanted to reinvent them. And to do that, I had to understand every inch of how they worked. Within 3 years, I opened my first property, a boutique stay in Back Bay called the Moonlight Inn. It sold out every weekend. Now at 36, I own 18 high-end resorts across 4 countries. The Stellar, their reunion venue, was my crown jewel, a fusion of Northwest design and sustainability tech. It won Luxury Resort of the Year twice, and now somehow my family thought it was too good for me. They'd built their narrative around my failure, never suspecting I'd rewritten the story. My phone buzzed again. It was Leo, my assistant. "Reunion contract needs your signature. Want me to bring it up?" I typed back with a grin. "No need, I've got plans for this one." I opened my laptop and began finalizing the adjustments. If they thought I wasn't fit to attend, they were about to experience what exclusion looks like. I'd make sure every detail screamed my success, a silent rebuke to their years of scorn. When the outsider signs your guest list, every decision for the reunion would pass through my hands. The lighting, the music, the chef's tasting menu, even the ambient scent used in the lobby. It was time for a quiet spectacle. Memories burned in my mind, like when they sat me at the kids' table well into my 20s, or worse, Chloe's wedding, where she accidentally had me seated next to the valet team. She'd said I'd feel more at home. She'd smirked as I sat there, knowing I'd already opened my first hotel. I'd owned 7 hotels by then. They never asked questions. They never looked past the old image of me. Only my younger sister Jade had stayed in touch, though she never knew how far I'd come. She called just as I was finishing the arrangements. "Nora," she said gently, "Chloe told me she asked you not to come. I'm so sorry." Her voice carried the guilt of knowing how they'd sidelined me. "Don't be," I replied, signing the final contract with a smile. "Actually, I have a favor. Can you make sure everyone arrives at exactly 6:00 p.m.? Why? What's happening? Let's just say Chloe isn't the only one with connections at the Stellar." The next 2 weeks flew by. I oversaw everything down to the floral centerpiece shade. Each choice was a deliberate flex, a reminder of the empire they'd dismissed as a pipe dream. If they were going to exclude me from my own resort, I was going to give them a night to remember. The Whitman family demanded luxury. I was about to give them a show they'd never forget. The night before the reunion, I stood quietly in the lobby of the Stellar, watching my staff polish the marble until it reflected like glass. My chest tightened with anticipation, knowing their smugness was hours from collapse. Light from the crystal chandeliers danced across the room, illuminating every detail of the Pacific-inspired interior. White stone columns, subtle gold trim, sea glass accents. Everything was flawless. Leo appeared beside me, tablet in hand. "All arrangements are confirmed. New signage will be revealed at exactly 6:15 p.m. tomorrow. Are you sure about this?" I didn't hesitate. I thought of Chloe's smug voice on the phone, of the years of microaggressions and cold shoulders, of her telling our cousins I'd never amount to more than a desk clerk. Absolutely. After all, it's not every day I get to welcome my family to my own resort. I smiled, already picturing their faces when the truth hit. Tomorrow would change everything. At exactly 5:45 p.m. the next evening, I stood in my private suite on the top floor, watching security feeds of the arrivals. They came like clockwork, designer handbags, heels clicking, Rolexes gleaming, everyone trying to outshine each other in a shallow pageant of wealth. Chloe waltzed in wearing red Chanel, barking orders like she was management. Her every move screamed entitlement, as if she'd earned this grandeur. She posed by the floral display, camera ready. My father's black Mercedes rolled up next, trailed by luxury cars filled with aunts, uncles, and cousins I hadn't seen since I was the failure of the family. "Everything's prepped," Leo said, glancing down at his screen. "Staff knows their cues. Want security on alert?" I shook my head. No need. The Whitmans wouldn't dare ruin their own illusion of elegance. I adjusted my slate gray suit, custom Armani. Not that any of them would believe I knew the brand, let alone owned more of it than half the room. "Let them get comfortable," I said. "This is going to be fun." Their ignorance was my stage, and I was ready to steal the show. In the grand buzz with champagne and self-congratulations, Chloe bragged near the fountain, reliving her effort to book the venue. My father circled with old colleagues, no doubt boasting about his stock portfolio. My cousins posed by the stellar signage like it somehow validated their status. At 6:10 p.m., right on schedule, the hotel manager approached Chloe. "Miss Whitman, I'm afraid there's a small issue with your reservation." Chloe's polished expression soured. Her eyes narrowed, as if the manager had personally insulted her legacy. "Excuse me, I arranged this directly with your corporate office." "Yes, ma'am," the manager replied. "It's just the owner had a few special instructions for this evening." Chloe laughed, waving a manicured hand. "Please, I highly doubt N. Quinn has time to meddle in event details." A hush fell over the room as I stepped forward from the back of the ballroom. "Actually," I said calmly, "N. Quinn does concern herself with quite a few things." My voice cut through their arrogance, a blade they hadn't seen coming. If you felt that moment of quiet victory deep in your chest, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Because what happens next at that reunion will leave everyone speechless. Silence fell like a curtain. Every head in the ballroom turned toward me, the forgotten cousin, the so-called embarrassment, now standing at the entrance of the most elite resort on the West Coast, dressed in a tailored suit that probably cost more than Chloe's handbag collection. "Nora," my father's voice cut through the stillness. His tone was a mix of shock and unease, sensing his control slipping. "What are you doing here?" Chloe snapped, trying to recover. "She told me I couldn't afford to attend," I said flatly. "She was afraid I'd embarrass the family." Chloe's face flushed red. "This is a private function. I'll have security escort you out." Her threat was a desperate grasp at authority she didn't have. "No," I said calmly. "You won't." At that moment, Leo, standing discreetly by the AV table, tapped a button on his tablet. The massive LED screen behind the ballroom stage lit up. First, the Stellar Haven logo appeared, followed by bold letters that read, "Owned and operated by Nora Whitman Quinn, founder and CEO, Quinn Hospitality Group." A gasp echoed across the ballroom, glass clinked. Somewhere near the fountain, someone dropped a fork. Chloe's champagne flute slipped from her hand and shattered against the marble floor. That's not possible," she stammered. Her voice cracked, her polished facade crumbling like cheap plaster. "Would you like to see my business card?" I offered sweetly, holding up the sleek black leather case in my hand. "Or maybe the property deed?" I gave the portfolio a gentle pat. My father stepped forward, eyes wide, voice low. "You own this place and 17 other properties?" I nodded. "Though this one is special. It's where I began my career, back when you said I was throwing my life away cleaning hotel rooms." The memories surfaced again, Chloe sneering at my housekeeping uniform, my aunts whispering that I'd settled, cousins cropping me out of photos like I didn't belong. Each slight was a wound they'd reopened, never imagining I'd turned their disdain into my empire. "All those years," I continued, letting the words sink in, "you looked down on me, but you never once looked up." I turned to Chloe. "The tiny motel in Back Bay you loved to mock, that was my prototype, my innovation lab, the foundation of what this industry now calls the gold standard." Leo stepped forward, placing elegant navy folders into the hands of key family members. "These," he said, "contain the real story behind Quinn Hospitality Group and the invoice for tonight's event." Chloe grabbed hers, rifling through it with trembling hands, her eyes widened. "This rate, this is above market, about 50% above." Her shock was almost comical, a mirror to her smugness on the phone. "I confirmed, a family surcharge, if you will." From the back of the room, Jade burst into laughter. A few others followed, awkward at first, then bolder as the tension cracked. My father looked at me, jaw tight. "Why didn't you ever tell us?" I met his gaze. "Would you have believed me?" He said nothing. No one did. But in that moment, the silence spoke volumes. 12 years ago, you told me no daughter of yours would ever work in a hotel," I said, my voice steady but clear. "Well, you were right about one thing. I don't work in a hotel." I paused, then smiled. "I own them." Around the room, every digital screen came to life. Panoramic visuals of my resorts worldwide flickered across the ballroom. The golden hues of our overwater villas in the Maldives, the snow-draped elegance of our Swiss alpine retreat, the towering grandeur of our glass-fronted property in Dubai, where the skyline stretched like a crown across the horizon. Each image was a testament to the empire they dismissed as a fantasy. "As for tonight's reunion," I added smoothly, "your reservation hasn't been canceled. You're welcome to stay. In fact, I've arranged a private tour of the property. I think it's time you all saw what a career in hospitality really looks like." Chloe took a step forward, her polished persona cracking. "Nora, we never meant—" I cut her off gently but firmly. "Yes, you did. Every snide joke, every time you left me out of the photo, every time I was treated like the help, every family dinner where you mocked my little job, oblivious to the contracts I was signing." I looked around the room, voice lifting just slightly. "But while you were busy upholding your status, I was busy building a legacy." "Welcome to the Stellar," the crowd stirred. My team will escort you to your upgraded suites. Though, Chloe, I added, turning slightly, your room had to be adjusted last minute due to a high-profile booking. We had to place you in one of our standard queen rooms. Her face flushed a deep crimson, the same room category she once mocked me for cleaning. It was poetic justice, a mirror held up to her years of arrogance. As the family followed staff to their suites, some in awkward silence, others nervously whispering, my father stayed behind. I was wrong, he said, his voice uncharacteristically soft. About everything. His admission felt hollow, too late to erase the years of rejection. I studied him for a long moment. The man who once belittled my choices now looked small, unsure. Yes, I said quietly, but do you want to know the best part of owning 18 hotels, Dad? He raised an eyebrow. I've got 18 presidential suites. You can pick any one of them to stay in while you figure out how to make things right. A faint smile tugged at his lips. Where'd you learn to negotiate like that? Probably the same place I learned real leadership. By starting at the bottom, something this family never had to do. That night, after the private tours and quiet conversations had ended, I stood in my penthouse suite, overlooking the Seattle skyline. Leo entered with a folder in hand. Tonight's final numbers, he said. Your family seems humbled. I laughed. Amazing what a little perspective in a room without a view can do. Are you going to tell them? He asked. About Paris, Tokyo? I turned to the desk, where the contract sat, ready to be signed. Not yet, I smiled. Let them be surprised. The stellar was just the beginning. If you've loved watching Nora reclaim her power, don't forget to subscribe, because in the next chapter the world gets even bigger, and the family, they're not done learning yet. Let's save something for next month's reunion, I said aloud to no one, the city lights of Seattle glittering below me. Every smart hotelier knows repeat guests are the best kind. I leaned against the floor-to-ceiling window of my penthouse, my reflection framed by the skyline I used to only dream of. The journey from scrubbing baseboards to signing international development deals hadn't been easy, but it had been worth it. Success, I realized, was never about vengeance. It wasn't about proving my family wrong. It was about proving myself right. And sometimes the sweetest kind of revenge isn't cold at all. It's warm, luxurious, served with a rooftop breakfast and a view that takes your breath away. My phone buzzed. Chloe? Can we talk tomorrow, please? I smiled, typed back a simple line. Of course. Your breakfast reservation is at 8:00 a.m. I own that restaurant too. Her message was a plea, but I'd make her earn every word of reconciliation. There was power in simplicity, not just in money or property or prestige, but in being seen finally for who I truly was. Not the help, not the outsider, not the family joke, but Nora Quinn, the woman who built something real. The woman who wasn't invited to the reunion because she was too busy hosting it. As I looked out at the city and the glowing signage of the stellar below, I felt it in my chest, that sense of calm, of closure, of purpose. Tomorrow would bring the next chapter in the Whitman family story. Not one born from old money or empty pride, but from something earned. Because at the end of the day, every great hotelier knows the secret. It's not just about offering a bed. It's about giving people something they'll never forget. And tonight, my family would remember. If you've made it this far, thank you for walking this journey with me. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and tell me what you would have said if you were in my shoes that night. Would you have stayed quiet? Would you have made the same choices? Or would you have done something completely different? Let's talk about it. I read every comment, and your perspective matters more than you know. And if you felt even a flicker of inspiration from my story, hit that subscribe button. There's more ahead, more moments of truth, more family twists, more growth. Because this wasn't just about a reunion. It was about reclaiming space that was always mine to begin with. Here's what I've learned. Sometimes the world and the people in it won't see you until you've built something so undeniable they can't look away. That's okay. Let them laugh. Let them doubt. Let them label you the underdog. Because quietly, consistently, and powerfully, you can rise. Start small. Start where they think you're nothing, and use every slight, every snide remark, every exclusion as bricks in your foundation. You don't need revenge. You just need results. And when that day comes, when they walk into a room you own and don't even realize it yet, smile, not because you beat them, but because you never needed their permission to shine. Your worth was never theirs to decide. So build, dream, show up, and when you do, I'll be here cheering you on from the penthouse.